I'm sort of excited to do this. I had a blog post several years ago where I talked about combing, and I explained it in pictures, and the pictures have disappeared. I can't find them anywhere. And so people look at that blog post, they read the description, and emails that ask, where did the pictures go? So that was one of the reasons that I decided to do this combing series. I think, the blog post that I did on Monday, the 12th, February 12th, was good, because I think a lot of people get confused about combs and which combs to use and how to use them. So today's video is really just about the difference between using single pitch combs, and what difference it makes when you start adding more rows of tines. So before I get into that, though, I just wanted to talk about really quick the technique that I use for combing, just really fast. So a lot of people are afraid of combs because they're pointy, and they are pointy, and it's important for them to be pointy so that it helps to get through the fiber. It gets in there easily and everything moves easily. Some comb makers make some combs with blunt tips, and I don't think that they work as well. I also like these finer tines because it helps. A lot of people some people who are making combs are using a pretty thick metal. Sometimes they're using nails that are a little bit thicker than I like. So that's why I use Valkyrie combs almost exclusively. They're easy, they're lightweight, and they have all the things that I like in a comb. So let me just show first how I comb, and I'll talk about safety while I'm doing it. So the fleece that I'm going to start with, just to show my combing technique, is this beautiful silver Romney fleece that I'm almost down to the last bit. So here's my comb. Of course, I wouldn't hold it up in the air like this. If I was doing it, it'd be down on my knee, but you can't see my knee. So, well, you can if I stick it up like this. When I load the combs, I usually spread out the cut end and see how very little there is on this side of the tines. I'm pretty careful about how I load the combs, because a little bit of care at the beginning is going to make a nicer yarn, and it's also going to make everything easier to comb, and you'll have way less waste. That's one thing that people get worried about when they're combing, is they seem to lose a lot of fiber, and they don't like that. You'll have way less waste if you have as little as possible starting out on this side at the beginning when you load. So let me just put one more layer. I don't like to overload the combs. Overloading does two things. First, as you comb your wool, it's going to fluff up. And so if you overload the combs, it'll pop up off over the top. The second thing is, if the more wool you have at a time, the longer it's going to take you to comb. And so even though it feels like it should take less time to comb because you're adding more, and so you'll have to do less loads, it really slows you down because you have to do more passes to get everything combed out correctly. So it's better to go this way. So the one thing that I forget all the time is combing milk. And in the wintertime in Michigan, the air is pretty dry. And so I like to have some combing milk. You can definitely spray this on before you load your combs. I forget every single time. If you've taken a class with me, you know, every single time I forget to put the combing milk on. There's lots of recipes for combing milk. You can find them all over the internet. Robin Russo has a great one. They're all over the place. I personally like a recipe that is from Unicorn Fiber Products. You know that I love Power Scour. They have a fiber rinse, and when I'm washing down types, I put that in the rinse because down types seem to get dried out really quickly. I also use it for my combing milk. So it's 1 part of the fiber rinse and 5 parts water, and it never goes bad. It doesn't go rancid. I can keep it in this little bottle forever, and it's awesome. And I actually personally like the smell. They do have scent-free products, but anyway, so I'm just going to spray a little bit. See, that wasn't that very much at all. Here's my other comb. This comb, the tines are going up in the air. This comb is coming away from my body. I'm not going to go like this. I'm not going to go like this. None of that stuff. It's always going to go away from my body. These are up in the air, but see how it's pointing away from my face, so that if anything scary happens, the tines aren't going to come and stab me. So start way out at the tips. See how I barely caught any of that? See that? Start way out. The bigger chunk you take, sometimes that's when you get stuck. I think a lot of people have trouble with combing because they don't take small enough bites, and so it feels like it's hard on your body, because you just need to take small bites and just keep working your way in. Now what's left there, I'm just going to leave that there. See, there's just a little bit tiny left. Switch hands and do the exact same thing. Now when this comb, when it's coming back towards you, it's good to lift the tines up and come back, because that way this fiber isn't going to flip over the top of the tines and make little folded over knots that make it also hard to comb. So come up and bring the tines up in the air so that it doesn't, so when you're sweeping back, it's not going over the top. And just work your way in. Just work your way in. These are a tool, so I'm not worried about scratching this up. Switch hands again. I like to do 3 passes. The reason for that is I like to spin from the cut end, and that will bring the cut end out, the furthest part out. So there's the waste that's left on this comb. That's going to go in the garbage. In my opinion, there's a reason that's called waste. Some people like to use it for stuffing. Some people like to card it. But because I like a smooth, consistent yarn, that doesn't work for me. So anyway, here's my combed bit. Look how pretty and open that is. To take it off the comb, you can do it 3 ways. You can use a diz, which I'm not going to talk about. This diz is from the spinning studio in Vermont. Robin Russo and her husband Pat make these. They also make combs that are very similar to these called St. Blaise combs, which are really great. They're really great combs. So if you can't find Valkyrie, St. Blaise are awesome. So you can use the diz. You can pull it off by hand, which I'll talk about another time, or you can spin it right from the comb. And those 3 different ways of removing it from the comb are going to make 3 different yarns. Even if you use the same drafting method to spin all of them, you're going to get 3 different yarns from those different ways to take it off the comb. So I'm not going to talk about that right now. That's for a later day. So I'm just going to clean this off so that I can get to the point of my video, which is using single pitch combs and double pitch combs on multi-coat fleece. Well, this is a double coat fleece. This is Hebridean. It's a double coated fleece. You can see it's got these nice long outer coat fibers, and then there's this really nice warm. So let me grab all these little tips. See how that's fine in here? It's sort of thin, and then it's all thick under here. That's all the short undercoat. They're really fine fibers. So if you have single pitch combs and you want to keep this fiber all together, like if you have an Icelandic fleece and you want to make lopey yarn, you want to keep all these layers together, right? And so if you want to comb it, which I prefer because these fibers are really long, so carding is a bugger. So I prefer combing. So I'm going to use my single pitch combs to keep all the layers together. So I'm just going to pull this in half so it's easier to put on. See how I'm straightening that out? Everything is all together there. I'm going to put this carefully onto the comb. See that? I can put one more layer. So here's another couple of locks. And I actually could put one more layer, I think. Straighten all this out, put the cut end on. The reason cut end on this is a lot easier than putting these pointy tips on, right? So because it's got this wider cut part here. So here, now a little bit of spray. This one doesn't really need it, but anyway. So here is my comb, and I'm going to start out at the edge. See how that all these fine fibers, the undercoat, came off and came across. See how the undercoat is coming off of the comb in my left hand? That's all that's left. Not very much. And what's there is kind of knotted around the tines. I'm going to switch hands, and I'm going to start way out here again. I want to get that. See how it's all moving? There's almost nothing left on this comb. Everything's over here. So all of the fibers are staying together because I'm using single pitch combs. There, everything's moved. There's a little bit left. This is just kind of knotty. Almost everything is on this comb. So if you want to make like a lopey type yarn, spin all the coats together, single pitch combs are the way to go. I didn't do any different method of combing than I used on the Romney with the single pitch combs. But let me show you if I put them on my double pitch combs. Here. Oh, I'm doing good. I wanted to try and keep this under 25 minutes if I could. So here, putting these on my 2-pitch. See that? Just this is way too wide. So see, I'm going to pull that off. This needs to be over here. I just kind of rearrange everything so that it works, so that the fleece is back in the order that it came to me in before I washed it. So here, let's put one more row. There. That's plenty. I probably could put a little bit more on there, but we don't need to. So see, every single time, forget to spray it. Okay. And the reason I say that is because if you keep getting these tines wet, they'll get a little bit of sometimes rust. Sometimes they just start to break down. They're not as shiny. So you probably don't want to be spraying your tines, except that I've been doing it for years. So anyway, here, I'm going to start way out here again, way out here. I'm going to work my way in. Now see how much more of the undercoat is left on this comb? And we want to do more passes so everything's straight. That's left. I'm going to do work my way in. Now nothing's coming anymore. So if you're having trouble getting something off and you don't want to go towards yourself, come through, give it a little twist, and then pull through and see if that'll help. But look how much undercoat is left on this comb, and it's not coming off. See how much? We don't want to leave this much. Look how much is back here. Can you see that? How much undercoat? And then when I go to take this off, the undercoat is going to stay behind in the tines. If I was pulling like this on the single pitch combs, the undercoat would be coming through. So there, now I have all the outer coat, not all of it, but here's the undercoat. So if you wanted to pull this off your combs and have a blended yarn, you won't. You'll have the outer coat that you'll spin the outer coat, and then you'll get to the undercoat fibers. So this is the reason why 2-pitch combs are good for separating the coats, because now I have all this undercoat here. I can spin it separately, and I have all this outer coat and I can spin it separately. This is why single pitch combs are good for keeping your fibers together for blending, and double pitch combs, if you have a multi-coat fleece, are great for keeping the short bits back. But you can also see what happens now if you're just combing a regular fleece, why you have all this leftovers here. All the short fibers, the tangled up fibers, the weak fibers that break, all of those stay back in the comb. And so when you pull it off the comb, you only have the strongest and longest and best fibers for worsted spinning. So that's what I wanted to show you today. I hope that this helps. I hope that if you have combs in your closet and you haven't been using them, that you'll get them out and try them. They're also fun for blending colors. If you want to try some blending colors and you don't want a woolen yarn, you can blend colors on your combs too, which I'll talk about another day also. That's on my list. So I'll see you again soon.